If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
This is episode 424 of Wheel Bearings. I am Sam Abu-Al-Samid from Telemetry.
And I'm Roberto Baldwin from SAE International. And, and we have the podcast, SME Automotive Engineering Podcast. So I'm from SAE.
Excellent. And I can't remember where Nicole said she is this weekend, but she's not here. So
she's somewhere.
It's just the two of us.
Somewhere rad, probably.
Yeah, it usually is. Yeah. Tomorrow, certainly by the time everybody hears this, when it goes up on Tuesday, I will be getting close to Japan. I'll be on my way to Tokyo.
Man.
I know.
I'm so jealous.
I love going to Japan. Japan's great.
The best. Everyone who listens, figure out a way to go to Japan. It's very expensive to get there, but once you're there, it's not. It's really cheap.
It is right now. The exchange rate between the yen and the dollar is very favorable to Americans right now.
Yeah, so do that before that changes. But yeah, it's very expensive. Flying there is going to cost you an arm and a leg. But once you get there, I think when I was in Osaka, I paid like $40 for a hotel room.
Oof! Wow.
And a really nice, and it wasn't like scary like Motel 6 where it's like the floor is sticky and it's gross. It was a nice hotel room. I mean, it was small.
You pull back the blanket and you see all these nasty stains on the sheet.
You just hope it's water stains.
Yeah.
The hotel rooms are very small, the ones, the traditional sort of Japanese ones. But I mean, you're in Japan. What are you going to just stay in your, what, are you going to just hang out in your hotel all day?
Yeah.
Moving and shaking. You just need somewhere to sleep and shower and use a special magical toilet.
Well, I will be hanging out with Honda this week. Going to the show on Wednesday, going to the media day for the Japan Mobility Show, formerly known as the Tokyo Motor Show. And then on Thursday, we get to meet with the CEO of Honda and then learn more about Honda's space program. And then on Saturday, we go to Tochigi to drive the new Prelude and also Honda's next generation hybrid system.
Dun dun dun!
Yeah,
I'm going to Kia to look at something. I don't know if I'm allowed to say. They're
going to be showing a new vehicle that's going to be out in a few weeks.
Yeah, so that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I wish Kia would move it to Korea. Korea is also delightful, but
yes, I love Korea too.
I
love traveling in Asia in general.
Yeah, I'm just going to Orange County, so
yeah.
I lived in Orange County.
You driving down or flying down?
I'm flying down.
Okay,
all
right.
It's a hell drive because you got to drive through L.A. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's because it's on the wrong side of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you've driven stuff this week, but it's all stuff that you can't talk about yet, right?
There is stuff I can't talk about for like weeks, and then there's stuff I can't talk about for months. Months. Like next year, like well into next year. That's all I can say. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I drove some stuff. I actually on Thursday I was out at M1 Concourse in Pontiac, Michigan, with a crew from CNBC. They were working on a story on EV performance. Basically our EVs getting too fast, and we had a trio of electric vehicles that we borrowed to do some evaluation with and some filming with. We had a Kia EV6 GT line, 2026 model, which went from 0 to 60 in like 4.8 seconds. We had a Porsche Macan 4S electric, which is the base version of the electric Macan, which did it in about 4 seconds. And then we also had a 2026, or actually it was 25, Audi RS e-tron GT, which did it in 2.6 seconds. And the reporter from CNBC that was riding along was somewhat shocked at how fast these cars were. He was not expecting this. He doesn't usually drive EVs, and so he was not expecting these levels of performance.
I don't think people realize how fast under 5 seconds is. I don't think they really.
Or under 3 seconds.
Or under 3 seconds. Under 3 seconds it can make you very sick if you're not used to it. All your internal organs, like your eyeballs, feel weird. It takes a few launches before you get used to it. The first time, though, it's just like, oh, I think I'm going to vomit. I've had friends who have said, don't ever do that again.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't enjoy that. No.
It's one of those things that I think for most people, when you buy vehicles like this, it's like, okay, you're buying it for bragging rights. And, you do it a few times to show it off for your friends, and then you never use it again.
Yeah.
It's kind of pointless to have that much performance in the real world because you can't use it. I mean, certainly if you live in many places in California, you're not going to use that on the 405 or the 101, or 280 in the Bay Area. It's not only can you not do it, but even if you find a time when there's nobody around, you shouldn't be doing it because there's no need to be accelerating that fast.
Yeah, you're giving people a lot of power who have very little experience with that power. Mm-hmm. That's sort of the scary part is that it's such a huge jump in acceleration, and how quick vehicles are, is that the average person again is used to like 6 seconds, 5 seconds, 7 seconds, and they've been fine with that, and then they get in something with 3 seconds, and it's. There's always the potential, I talk about this a lot where, in the 80s and 90s, 70s, when a car broke free, you could break a car free at like 20 miles an hour. Like you could make a mistake where the car was going sideways at like 20, 25 miles an hour in the rain or, sometimes even on dry land. But
tires were pretty bad in those days.
Yeah. And tires are pretty bad. So you could like correct at a slow speed, and you would learn how to correct at a slow speed. Now, because tires are so much better and vehicles are so much better at keeping you on the road, which is great for safety and for 90% of the people out there who are just driving like regular. This is outstanding because it means fewer deaths, fewer injuries, fewer collisions. But the flip side of that is that things don't go wrong until the vehicle's really going very, very fast. You're doing things at like 70, 80 miles an hour. Now you're having to correct in an environment without any previous experience correcting at a low speed. And so that's when you end up with there's an accident, but it's catastrophic because you were just going so fast and things went wrong so quickly that you don't have the person doesn't have the experience to react in any meaningful way because they've never experienced this, because the vehicle and the tires have done such a great job of keeping you and keeping the vehicle from breaking free. And when it does, it's really, really bad.
Yeah, and most people don't get the opportunity to practice those kinds of skills, especially early in their driving life. You generally don't get much opportunity to practice the kinds of skills, the car handling skills you need to be able to recover when your vehicle does lose control. I've been fortunate, in the jobs that I've had, as an engineer, spending a lot of time driving vehicles on frozen pads of, frozen lakes and things like that, for the work I've done to, to be able to understand those dynamics and how to control the vehicle better. And as my kids, got to driving age, I made sure to take them out, as soon as it snowed, take them over to the local high school in the parking lot, and practice some car control with them. First get them used to what ABS feels like, what traction control feels like, and then to do some skid control. Sitting in the passenger seat and yanking on the parking brake to get the back end to break free, and have them practice steering into a skid, so that they know what it feels like. And hopefully, if they get into that kind of situation, they are able to respond appropriately.
Yeah, it is a sort of, it's a learned and something you have to end up having to do. For Sam and I, like Sam said, we've been very fortunate in that our jobs involve us doing these things pretty often.
Yeah.
And sort of, and we've had the benefit of people at tracks who I've had instructors like, oh, if you do this, you'll be better at this, and I've had instructors like on ice driving be like, oh, you should do this, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And I grew up driving on snow in a rear wheel drive. I learned how to drive on snow in a rear wheel drive Datsun 260Z. So zero weight in the bag, zero, and so everything was a skid in that car. And so that's how I learned how to drive. And even then, I still have, you still have instructors like, oh, I saw you're doing this, you should really do this. And you're like, oh, and then you see the benefits of it. And you see the benefits of like learning from people. And the average person doesn't have that. And it's, if you want to have fun, do autocross, take some defensive driving classes, do some ice stuff. I know it can be expensive sometimes, but if you really want to, sort of explore the dynamics of vehicles outside of sort of the safety, all the implemented safety, which of course keeps you on the road and keeps you from dying. If you want to explore more of that, take some classes, do it somewhere safe, so when things go wrong, oh no, you hit some cones. Who cares?
Yeah.
As opposed to
the consequences are minimal, but you'll learn some important skills and gain some important experience, so that if and when it does happen in the real world, and at some point in your life it probably will happen in the real world, you want to know how to respond to those situations when the car does start to lose traction.
Yeah. And, it's also nice about this is that you end up, you maybe end up being part of a community. You go out with your Miatas or your BRZs or your M2s or whatever. And you sort of meet people, and, now you have some new friends, which, according to the internet and the world, is very difficult for people to make nowadays.
Ever wondered if that UFO sighting was a secret government project?
Not because they didn't go to the moon, but because they seen something on the moon they weren't supposed to.
Or if ancient civilizations really had alien architects.
So Roswell, obviously they think they recovered crafts and beings.
On Theorists Theorizing, wild speculation meets seasoned storytelling.
How they dug 2 kilometers below these pyramids and created all the structures that we're now finding.
Join the theorists as they dive into UFOs, cryptids, government cover-ups, true crime, and the weirdest theories the internet and humanity has to offer.
Giza and the pyramids itself being an energy source,
It's not a lecture. It's a round table of curiosity, comedy, and what if.
Maybe they got tipped off by these U-boats that fled to Argentina that there was something there.
Theorists Theorizing. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.
Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. We've updated the Wheel Bearings merch store, and now there's a whole bunch of new choices, new colors, new styles, T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, mugs, travel mugs, stickers, aprons, tote bags, you name it. You can get your Wheel Bearings merch at shop.wheelbearings.media. Go check it out. That's shop.wheelbearings.media. All right. Well, I did, that was only a few hours at M1, shooting that story that'll probably be coming out in a couple of weeks. But I did get to spend some more time with a 2026 BMW iX xDrive 45? Yes, a 45, with the 22-inch wheel package. So the iX is BMW's mid-sized electric crossover. Let's get the obvious thing out of the way. Yes, this is not a particularly attractive vehicle, especially the front end. When my wife saw it in the driveway, she said, "What is that?" But once you get past the front end, especially with the giant, this is probably the most egregious variation, or one of the most egregious variations of the twin kidney grille. Especially given that, since it's an EV, there's no actual grille there. I think probably the only BMW that may have larger twin kidneys on it is the BMW M Hybrid V8 prototype race car, that's a whole different story, and the way it's done there actually works with that design. But once you get past that, this is basically a tallish mid-sized wagon. This is not an SUV, that in any form is going to be an off-roader. There's not that much ground clearance. But it works really well for what it is. It got an update, a mid-cycle refresh last year. So it got some new headlights. For the most part, the front end design stayed largely the same, but it did get new headlights and taillights. Got some interior updates, and it's now, I think when it originally came out in the U.S., at least, it was available in a rear-wheel drive version, and I think in Europe they still offer the rear drive. Now they are only offering 3 different dual-motor all-wheel drive models in North America. So there is the 45, which is the base model. There is the iX xDrive 60. So the 45 gets 402 horsepower from 2 motors, and will do 0 to 60 in about 4.9 seconds, which is as fast as anybody really needs to go. The xDrive 60 gets 536 horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds. And then there's the iX M70, which gets 650 horsepower and goes 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds. The one that I had, as I said, had the optional 22-inch wheel package. So I think it comes standard on 19s or 20s. And the interior is very much kind of the modern BMW ethos, the design direction they've gone across the board with BMW, where you have one large display that spans from the in front of the driver across the center of the dashboard. Very much simplified, a bare minimum of physical controls on the dashboard, which is not the greatest. It's not certainly not my preference, but it does have manual vents, which is a good thing. So you got manual vents. There's buttons in the middle of the dash for the hazard lights and the front and rear defoggers. And then there's buttons on the steering wheel and a few buttons or actually not so much buttons, but haptic controls on the center console. So this is likely to be one of the last BMWs that comes to market with the rotary iDrive controller. It still has one. It's a clear, I don't know if it's glass or if it's plastic, but it's a clear crystal-like knob. And then there's a toggle on the center console to the left of that for the shifter to select your gears to go between reverse, neutral, drive, and what they label as B or brake, where you get your one pedal mode. And then the rest of the buttons there that surround the iDrive controller are just haptic controls. So you press on them, you'll get a little bit of feedback, but there's no physical buttons there. overall, it works well. The screen is also a touch screen. The seats, are really good. They're very comfortable, very supportive. Had no issues there. There's lots of cargo room in the back. And when you open up the rear hatch, it's got this clamshell style tailgate that kind of wraps around the sides, similar to the Audi Q5 and the Lincoln Corsair. When you open it up, there's actually auxiliary lights underneath there on the sides, on either side of the cargo opening, so that if, for example, you have to carry something long in here and leave the hatch partway or all the way open as you're driving, you still have lights on the back there that, because the other lights are actually on the tailgate itself. As I said, there is a touchscreen interface for the infotainment that you can use as an alternative to the iDrive controller, but it is, the distance to reach it is kind of long, so it's a little awkward to use the touchscreen. So I actually prefer using the iDrive controller on this one. This vehicle, as I said, is plenty fast. Under 5 seconds 0 to 60. It will, depending on which tire and wheel package you can get up to 312 miles of EPA rated range. With the 22-inch wheels, it's rated at 279. And BMWs, modern BMW EVs have generally been, pretty good on their efficiency, and, they generally don't have any issues hitting their rated range numbers. So, you will, even with the 22s, you will probably get close to 300 miles of driving in real world conditions, unless you are using this like a sports car, which it is most definitely not. The ride and handling's good. One more thing. In the cargo area, when you open the tailgate, there is, the floor is flat, but then when you lift it up, there is another storage bin underneath, so you can lift it up, and that's where you've got the tools for changing tires. There's no spare tire, but you can, it's got a reflector there. There's a tow hook, so you can screw that in, if you need to tow the vehicle. What else? Lots of room in the rear seat in the second row. In the back of the front seat backs, there's USB charging ports there. There is a wireless charger in the center console. So yeah, I mean, this was, if you can get past the looks, this is generally a very pleasant car to drive. If you need a 5-passenger crossover that will go at least 300 miles on a charge, this is not a bad choice.
Sorry, I accidentally hit a tab, and that was the end of that.
So the xDrive 45 starts at $75,150. Mine had a bunch of options on there, including the integral active steering, the 4-wheel air suspension for $1,600, the driving assistant professional package, which includes a hands-free highway driving system, similar to Super Cruise or Blue Cruise, is $2,550. This one had the M Sport package on there, which gives you, some M badges and other exterior elements, as well as the 22-inch wheels. That's $4,500. Most people
It's a lot for badges.
Yeah.
You know what? You don't need no stinking badges.
Yeah. But you do get an M steering wheel, so there's that.
I guess. Wait, does the M steering wheel have the
No, it's leather.
Oh, thank God.
No Alcantara.
I hate Alcantara so much. Anytime it's on the steering wheel, it feels gross.
Okay.
Like I'm a texture
I don't
guy.
mind it, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh. Give me the heebie-jeebies.
All in, the grand total, including delivery. Remember, I said this was $75,000, $75,150 base MSRP, including delivery, came to $96,275. Which, on premium vehicles it's very easy to extremely inflate your price, if you're not careful with the options list.
With wheels and badges.
So you want to guess at the destination charge?
1,100.
Oh, you're very close. $1,175.
Yeah, it's the luxury people are like, we're already going to charge you a lot. Why are we going to? We're not going to sneak.
We're almost charging you almost $100,000 for this thing. We're not going to lie about where the price increases are. We're just going to tell you right up front. Here's where the price increases are.
We're not going to sneak it into some weird. Like, oh yeah, for us to deliver your car is going to be $40,000. Like what?
So yeah, 279 miles of range for this variant. And if you're looking for a premium luxury EV crossover wagon thing, I think this is definitely I think I don't know, this would be right up there with the BMW or the Mercedes EQE SUV. I gotta say, I think I kind of like the EQE, having the zero layer interface. I think actually works a little better than the BMW iDrive interface.
I know there's there was, did we even talk about it? No, but there was news about GM's going to get rid of CarPlay on all their cars, blah blah blah. Which I'm like, no, but the only system that I really barely ever use CarPlay with is the zero layer. Like I plug my phone in and like, oh, there's the map. There's a little thing for music. All right, that's fine. I everything else I have to, like, I test the infotainment system, but then I immediately go to CarPlay to do the stuff. The Mercedes zero layer, I'm just like, meh.
Yeah, because with the zero layer system, it's basically the whole screen is the map, and then you have some widgets that are around, that are overlaid on top of the map in the corners or the bottom level, for things like media players, and give you access to a few other things that you need that, don't take up a whole lot of space. They still have decently sized touch targets, so it's not too hard to hit those touch targets. And you're not going back and forth between different modes all the time, which I think is really helpful.
Yeah, because in CarPlay, I immediately go to the mode where it shows the map and music and all the other, other widgets about things that are happening. And that's why outside of like text messaging through, it'll pop up and say, hey, you got a text message, and it'll pop into CarPlay, and then I can pop back out to zero layer. So, yeah, if you're a car automaker, GM, and you want to tell people we're not going to have CarPlay anymore, you got to be as good or better than the zero layer.
Well, we'll talk more about GM in a little bit, but so that's the 2026 BMW iX xDrive 45 with 22-inch wheels. All right, let's get into some of the other stuff this week. So the reason why the show is pushed back for publication is pushed back to Tuesday this week is because of the embargo on the 2026 Jeep Grand Cherokee. For some reason, Jeep wanted to have it out on a Tuesday morning, so that's when the show will show up in your podcatcher. But for 2026, the Grand Cherokee is getting a very mild mid-cycle update. Most people probably won't even notice the differences visually from the exterior. A little bit of change to the front fascia, not a whole lot. It's it looks pretty much like the Grand Cherokees for the last 3 years. The current the WL version of the Grand Cherokee that came out 3 years ago. The inside, there is a change in the dashboard design. So they've gone to a different dashboard layout that has the larger screen. So it's a larger center screen. So it's a 12.3-inch infotainment screen in the center now. And it's integrated, and there's below that, they've integrated the same kind of haptic panel for the climate controls that they've been putting into other models like the Wagoneer S and the Grand Wagoneer and various other models. So they've gotten rid of some physical controls there, replaced it with this haptic touch bar for temperature control, defoggers, direction of where you want the airflow. The vents are still manual, so that's a good thing. So it's not a huge change. It's a fairly modest change, but it is a change, and it still has the optional passenger side screen, which, again, not really that useful for most people.
Someone's out there is enjoying it. I don't know. No one I know, but someone out there bought it, and they have a family member, and that family member is having the best time of their lives.
Yeah, probably, maybe, or maybe a Jeep employee, for all we know.
It's somebody.
Yeah.
Someone's having the best time with the passenger side screen to play,
or somebody at a supplier that's selling those screens to Stellantis.
Oh, that person's having the best days. They're selling it to Stellantis, Mercedes. Yeah.
So the big news though is under the hood. So the previous two powertrains that were available on the Grand Cherokee for 2025 are carried over. So you still have the Pentastar V6, and you still have the 4xe plug-in hybrid system. Those go unchanged. What's new is the new Hurricane 4 engine. And so I think it was last week or maybe the week before we talked about Stellantis' big $13 billion investment announcement. And one of the things that was mentioned in there is that they're going to build what was referred to in that press release as the GME T4 Evo engine in Kokomo, at their Kokomo engine plant, starting in 2026. Well, that engine is the official public facing branding for that engine is Hurricane 4. So this is a brand new 2-liter 4-cylinder, and you might be thinking, why is Stellantis making a brand new 2-liter 4-cylinder when they have one that they just introduced in North America a few years ago? That's the so-called GME 4-cylinder. It's the Global Medium Engine is what GME stands for. And there are similarities between these two engines. They actually have the same bore and stroke, but the current GME 4-cylinder has 275 horsepower, or somewhere thereabouts, depending on which configuration it's in, which vehicle it's in. Like the last generation Cherokee had this, and I think it was like 265 or 270. In the Alfa Romeos, I think it gets up to 290 on some variants. And then in the Jeeps, the Jeep 4xEs, it's 275. The new engine, the new Hurricane 4, it's a completely different block, completely different cylinder head. It's actually based on the design of the 3-liter 6-cylinder Hurricane engine that is in some of the Rams and the Grand Wagoneers. So it has the same bore spacing as that, same bore and stroke, 2 liters, but now makes 324 horsepower and 332 pounds-feet of torque. And the cylinder head design, the block design, the previous GME engine was a sandcast block with iron cylinder liners. This one is a die-cast aluminum block with deep skirts and lots of ribs on there that makes it nice and stiff so it doesn't vibrate too much and doesn't make too much noise. And it's got the same plasma bore spray system that they use on the 6-cylinder, and that's been used by various others going back to the GTR and some of the former Shelby GT500 engines that Ford has made. So there's no liners in there, but they spray this really hard coating on the cylinder bores after it's machined that gives them durability that they need. And then the cylinder head is where things get really interesting. So the new engine has 2 fuel injectors per cylinder. There's direct injection and port injection. And there's also 2 spark plugs per cylinder. And hopefully by the time this comes out, there will be a little video that shows you how all this works. But what they've done is they've incorporated what they call a pre-chamber design. It's a passive pre-chamber design into the cylinder head. And it's similar in concept to what they did on the Maserati Nettuno V6, their 3-liter V6. But they've done it here in a way that's a little more cost effective to manufacture. Hopefully will prove durable. But what you have, one of the spark plugs is in the top of the cylinder head, right in the center between all the valves. And then there's a copper alloy insert that gets pressed in to the cylinder head above or below the spark plug. So the spark plug sits above this pre-chamber, and then the other spark plug sits off to one side. And so what happens is when you have the piston going down on the intake stroke, sucking in air and fuel, and then the valves close and it goes up on the compression stroke. As it's going up on the compression stroke, this little copper insert has 9 holes in it, 8 around the perimeter and then 1 in the center. And some of that air-fuel mixture gets pushed up through those little orifices into this chamber. And then as the piston approaches top dead center, the spark plug goes off. It ignites that little bit of air-fuel that's inside there, and then it sprays out. And what you end up with is 9 flame fronts that spread out from this pre-chamber and gets you much more uniform combustion across the cylinder. So you make more power and the thing's more efficient and has cleaner emissions. And so, you almost achieve what they call homogeneous combustion. So basically almost all of the air-fuel mixture in the cylinder ignites simultaneously. So it's a much more efficient system that also makes, so it's 20% more power than before and 10% better fuel efficiency. So we'll see, how the fuel efficiency actually does in the real world. But it's a pretty cool setup. And like I said, 324 horsepower from a 4-cylinder turbo. It's not bad. Can't complain.
It's a lot of spark plugs when it comes time to doing it.
That's true. But, modern spark plugs generally last 100,000 miles anyway. So
yeah, it's fine. And then you get a spark plug, you're like, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
Yeah, with modern high voltage ignition systems, you can generally go at least 100,000 miles before changing spark plugs.
I still have so many. I don't know why. I have so many feeler gauges. Just billions of. Because, you used to have to pre-gap. You used to have to gap your spark plugs. Now they're all pre-gapped. And I got so many. I'll just find them.
I always check them before I put them in anyway.
Yeah, I check them still. Well, all right, it's fine.
I've got several of those little coin spark plug gap gauges.
Oh, the little it's a little circle, or I have the ones and then I have the ones with the 1 million iterations. The little it slides out the little metal slats. Yeah.
That was those were the days. Don't have to do that very much. Although I do that on my Miata because it still doesn't. It has. It's a distributor of this ignition system, but it's not quite as modern as current systems.
Yeah. It's fun to do. Let me get my feeler gauge out. Then you can't find it. You're like, I guess I go buy another one. Number 12.
So the Hurricane 4 is starting production now. It's actually already in production at Stellantis' Dundee engine plant here in Michigan. It's about 20 miles south of me here. And then next year they're going to add production at a second facility. So they're going to be using this across the board on a lot of Stellantis products over the next several years. I would expect that we will see this come to the Wrangler and also the Cherokee because remember the new Cherokee is launching only as a hybrid, but they've said that eventually there will be a combustion engine in there. So I'm guessing that there will be a version of this engine in the new Cherokee. 300 horsepower Cherokee, that could be fun. And then, assorted other Stellantis products. So this will initially the GME engine will stay in the plug-in hybrids, but I'm guessing at some point they will transition over to this engine as well. All right. So speaking of trucks, Scout, when it was announced that Scout was coming back, that Volkswagen was going to revive the Scout brand, a lot of people got really excited, and it was going to be electric. And then by the time that they actually showed us concept version of the truck and the SUV, they said, yeah, we're going to do an extended range EV version as well. And now with the way the market's going, It's like, yeah, I think, based on our pre-orders, we're going to start off building just the EREV version. The full battery electric version will come along at some point, maybe.
I mean, an EREV truck makes sense, to
Yeah.
be honest. I like the idea of electric Scout, but also Volkswagen has money issues. So yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean that's what's driving this. Is VW Group as a whole has been having some struggles. They're not selling as much as they did. Certainly not selling as many EVs as they hoped, and so I think they figure, well, we can sell a lot more of these EREVs, because I think the last number I heard was about 85% of the pre-orders were for the EREV version. The big question though is, when it does come out, how much, what kind of capability is it actually going to have as an EREV? Because the rumors are that it's going to use the Volkswagen EA888 4-cylinder, which is the one that they use in pretty much everything. 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo. It's going to be mounted in the back somewhere, and it's unclear. There's been some reports that the EREV version may only have like 3,500 pounds of towing capacity. If that's the case, that's not going to go over very well with truck buyers.
I wonder how many people who are looking at this are towing that much, though. I think those folks, whenever they're always going to buy a diesel. I think there's people who are just like, they're going to overbuy for what they want to do.
Yeah and no. I mean, this is basically a full-size truck and full-size SUV. I mean, this is roughly close to the same size as an F-150 or a Silverado. This is not a mid-size truck like the Rivian R1. And, if you look at, people that are buying, even the F-150s and Silverados, the light-duty F-150s and Silverados, they're often towing campers or boats, that weigh 6,000 to 8,000 pounds. Yeah, they may not be using the full 10 or 12,000 pound capability, but a lot of them are towing 5,000 to 8,000 pound loads.
Are a lot of them? Is that a truth?
Well, it is here in Michigan.
All right. Well, yeah, that's what you're seeing. That doesn't mean that's. I always want to see the data, and no one's ever going to give us. It's like the plug-in
That's
data.
true. Yeah.
Like, I want to know how many people are actually using their truck to do truck things. And I also want to see how many people, and I think those folks who are buying those, I don't think they're very smart about what they're buying. This is essentially like a Ridgeline, just a big Ridgeline.
Yeah, but bigger.
Yeah, a big Ridgeline.
Yeah, I mean this is sized like a full size truck, so that's going to be real interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, that does make sense. Full size trucks generally have that capacity to do the full-size truck thing, where the mid-size, you're like, okay, I understand that I'm getting a mid-size truck, so I shouldn't be expected to be, again, carrying a fifth wheel or a giant boat or whatever. Not carrying, but towing. And so when you see a full-size that doesn't do that, yeah, it's a good point.
All right. Let's continuing with the EV theme for a couple more minutes. Prague, the city of Prague in the Czech Republic, has been on a splurge of installing lamppost EV charging. This is what I like to see. This is what we need more of. More of this, not so much emphasis on DC fast charging, because especially in cities, because
it's just parked. Just park it. It's bring your own cable. Yeah. You plug it in there. That easy peasy. I've done it in Germany. I've done it in, I don't know, some other places. I can't remember. It's great because you're like, oh, I'm going to be inside for hours. I don't need DC fast charging every time I park my car.
Yeah, I mean, if you live in a city, a lot of people who live in urban areas, have to park on the street. And, this is perfect. You just pull up to the curb, take out your cable, plug it in, and you're good. And, it's very, from an installation standpoint, it's very easy because street lamps, they already have power. they're already running. They've already got lots of power, and here in the U.S., many of them are running, a single phase of a 480 volt circuit, so they're running like 277 volts, and the new SAE 3400 standard supports that, so it's much easier to install a charging outlet on those poles, without having to put in a transformer or anything. You just tap right into the power that the lights are using, and you're good to go. So far in 2024, Prague really began their program last year. They put in 143 new street lamps that had EV charging ports on them. By 2026, they hope to have 1,500 installed and 6,000 by 2030. So these are all across the city.
Cool.
And it says here in this Jalopnik article, 2 years ago, there were only 2,400 EV charging points in the entire Czech Republic.
Wow. That's not, yeah. Well, you move quickly if you're smart about it. I don't understand why America is so slow on the bring your own cable thing, but I also understand why America. It's like part of me is like, why aren't we doing the thing that everyone else is doing that makes sense? And then also part of me is like, yeah, I know why.
Yeah.
I gotta close the door.
All right. So I also drove the Toyota Rav4, 2026 Toyota Rav4 last week, and the new Rav4 is based on the same architecture as the previous generation, so it's not really all new. So it's same dimensions, same 106-inch wheelbase. It's the same size, 183-ish inches long, I think. So it hasn't grown larger, hasn't grown fatter, but got new styling, all new styling. And for 2026, there's no more gas-only versions. They're all hybridized, either regular hybrid or plug-in hybrid. And so they do have a couple of new trim levels. So, the design, which we first saw in May at the Toyota event at their headquarters, is, a little chunkier looking, a little blockier looking than before. It's got a variation on what they call their hammerhead headlight theme that they put on the latest Prius and the Camry. It's a little more squared off version of it.
It's like someone said, "Hey, can you make a RAV4 but with Legos?"
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. Hey, take the RAV4 now, build it with Legos.
Yeah.
All right. Boom. That's what you're getting.
So they're kind of splitting up the trims. There's like 7 trims altogether now. Splitting those up across 3 different groups. So they've got their core group, which is kind of the most mainstream variations. Then there's the premium group, the rugged group, which is the new Woodland trim, which replaces the former TRD version, because TRD is now being reserved for body-on-frame trucks and utilities. So they're calling it it's the RAV4 Woodland is the off-road version or off-roady version, and then there's the Sport group, which includes the new GR Sport. So the basic RAV4 hybrids drive pretty much like current generation RAV4 hybrids. They're not mechanically all that different. They got a little bit more power because there's no gas version now, and no previously on the 2025 RAV, they only had the hybrid with all-wheel drive, and it used a rear e-axle system to provide on-demand all-wheel drive, and then front drive. So there was no mechanical all-wheel drive system on there, and you couldn't get a front-wheel drive only RAV4 hybrid. If you want a front drive, you'd have to get a gas version. Well, now since the gas version's gone, they're offering a gas RAV4 hybrid, front-wheel drive hybrid. Sorry, they're offering a front-wheel drive RAV4 hybrid, which has 224 horsepower. And then there is the 226, and then if you want all-wheel drive, They add the rear e-axle, and you get a total combined output of 236 horsepower. So it's about 10 more than before. And then the plug-in hybrid has the battery's been bumped up from 18 kilowatt hours to 22.7 kilowatt hours. So it'll now give up to 52 miles of electric driving range.
Nice.
And has 324 horsepower. And the GR Sport version is only available as a plug-in hybrid. So there's 4 different trim levels that have a plug-in hybrid. Driving around in the plug-in hybrid in just EV mode, it's got plenty of performance to get around. So you can easily drive this as a daily driver. 203 horsepower from the electric motors alone. So if you're driving it with the engine off in EV mode, you get 200 horsepower, which is basically the same as what you got before with the gas version. And now you've got 52 miles of electric range to play with. So for the vast majority of people, it's going to be fine. That's going to be, this would meet your needs as an EV. And then, as with other plug-in hybrids, when you want to take a longer trip, just keep going. And it operates as a hybrid once the battery is depleted. So performance, not an issue here. One interesting thing with the plug-in hybrid that I noticed is that, we've complained in the past about the sound of Toyota's 4-cylinder engines with the hybrids. They're not the most refined sounding engines in the world. They tend to be a little, they're good. They're strong enough. They're durable, but they just don't sound very good. Well, that's not a problem with the new plug-in hybrid. It's way quieter now when it's running in hybrid mode. And the reason why is they actually, the plug-in hybrid actually has a completely different block that has been significantly stiffened compared to the regular block. So it's a little more expensive, but it's a lot stiffer, vibrates a lot less, makes a lot less noise. And then they've also added some other noise insulation throughout the vehicle as well. So now there's a lot less difference between driving in EV mode and driving in hybrid mode with the plug-in hybrid RAV4. And it's actually quite pleasant to drive. We had no issues with performance or anything else like that during the time we were driving it. The biggest issue I had with the new RAV4 is the interior feels kind of cheap. And it's interesting because there was another car.
Is it the blockiness? It doesn't have a flow?
It's the materials. So, there's not much, there's not really any, there's no piano black anywhere, which is good.
All right. So they get a +1 for that.
Yeah. But if you look at the dashboard, you'll see that there are panels, that are just flat, almost completely untextured. And I asked, because these were pre-production vehicles that we were driving, is this production representative? Because oftentimes what you'll find on pre-production models, if they don't have all the tooling quite ready and installed, you will find panels in pre-production models or in prototypes that don't have the graining that you will find on production models or textures that you'll find on production models. So just be smooth plastic. And, so I specifically asked Toyota, is that the case with this one? And I said, nope, this is production representative. And I said, yeah, okay. The fit and finish was good, or the fit was good. But the materials just looked kind of cheap. It's like hard plastics everywhere. And it just didn't look and feel great. And, there's another car that I drove earlier this week that I can't talk about yet, but that is considerably less expensive than this vehicle is likely to be, and it has a much nicer feeling interior than this does.
Even the Nissan Leaf, which is
even the Leaf,
the cheap Leaf for an EV, the cheap for an EV Leaf, even that you're like, oh, this is nice in here. The Maverick, even though it's not using like premium materials, feels
Yeah,
It
the texturing that they put on those materials, it's still hard plastic, but the graining and the texturing they put on it feels and looks a lot better.
Yeah. The texture goes a long way, is what we're saying.
Yeah, it does.
A little bit of texture goes a long way. Like very flat, just kind of meh, just kind of feels.
Yeah,
like
I mean, I don't
90s,
need the top of the dashboard to be, all padded and, covered in leather, especially on more affordable vehicles.
Yeah.
But, I do want it to, at least have some texture to it, that looks like there was some thought given to it. And this, it just looks cheap. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. It does not look, for a vehicle. And Toyota has not released pricing yet for the new RAV4. It will probably be a little bit more than what it was last year. The 2025 RAV4 hybrid started at $32,850. I'm guessing it's probably going to be at least 33 and change, maybe 34 for a base. And then the plug-in hybrid will probably start somewhere around 44. The previous one started at 44,800. I'm guessing it'll probably be at least 45. And maybe a little bit higher for the plug-ins. Although I think there's different trim levels, so there's actually lower trim levels now available for the RAV4 plug-in. But like the GR Sport, which is the top trim level, that thing is probably going to cost somewhere around $55,000, and that has the same dashboard materials that are in the base RAV4.
Yeah.
And that's kind of unfortunate. I'd like to see Toyota put a little more effort into the interior materials that they put in these vehicles. And it hasn't hurt their sales yet. Last year, the RAV4 was by far the best-selling single nameplate in the U.S. So, Ford likes to talk about the F-Series being the top-selling vehicle in the U.S., but when they say that, they're talking about F-150s, 250s, 350s. Every F-Series up to like the F600 medium-duty trucks.
And that has fleet sales. So you have to imagine how insanely well the RAV4 is actually selling.
Yeah. But the F-150 itself is somewhere around 400,000 units last year. The RAV4 sold 475,000 units in the U.S. last year. And, I would expect that this one is going to sell just as well because it has all the things that people like about a RAV4. It's, good size. It's got, basically the same powertrain. It's got all those features. And it, despite my complaints about the materials in the interior, one big change that they made is this has their next generation infotainment system. Which is the first thing that they've built on their new Arene software platform. That's their platform for their next generation software-defined vehicles. So the ADAS and the infotainment on this RAV4 are all built on that software platform. And the biggest change from a functional standpoint for the infotainment. You were talking earlier about, a lot of infotainment systems, you've got to go, to do different modes. You've got to switch modes, and the previous gen Toyota multimedia system was overall, it was such a huge improvement over the prior Entune systems.
Entune was not great.
Yeah. But, my biggest complaint with that system, with the Toyota system, the current generation of the Toyota system, was that you couldn't display multiple things on the screen at the same time. So if you're in navigation mode, you got no media player controls, or vice versa. Or if you're in settings, you couldn't see any of the other stuff. Now, it gives you get two screens that you can swipe through, and on the main screen, you have two windows on there, and so you have about 2/3 of the screen is taken up by the navigation screen, and you can switch these around. You can switch what displays in which window. But so the first screen has two windows, 2/3 of it being nav by default, and the other third being the media player. And then with one swipe to the left, you get a second window that has three more widgets on there. So you get three panes on there showing different functionality. So it's very easy to have access to all the things you want without having to switch around between different modes very much. And so I think that was a big improvement to this vehicle. It's also got a new voice control system that worked pretty well, worked pretty reliably during the time we had it for a few hours. I mean, it's overall, it's definitely an improvement. I think it's a better vehicle, except for some of those interior materials.
Yeah.
And then there's the Woodland, which, like everybody else, Toyota's got to have an off-roady variant of the RAV4. Honda's got their Trail Sport, the CR-V Trail Sport, and you've got the Wilderness editions from Subaru and various others. And like most of these off-roady versions, it's mostly off-road in appearance. There's no skid plates on this. You do have the front fascia, the lower part of the front fascia is molded so that it looks looks like it's a skid plate wrapping up from underneath, but it's just plastic. It does, the RAV does have more ground clearance than a lot of these vehicles. So it's, 8.3 inches of ground clearance. So it's got a reasonable amount of ground clearance. And with what they did, they did some interesting stuff with the ADAS, with the new ADAS system, with controlling the wheels, to get you better control on the off-road stuff. So we did a light off-road course, no really big rocks or anything, because that's not what this thing's designed for. But it was more than just a dirt road, and it did good. It did fine. So it was quite quite reasonable to drive, on the types of things that you're going to use a RAV4 for. You just want to be, take a little bit of care to make sure that you don't go over, anything that's sticking up more than 8 inches, because it could tear up the underside of the vehicle.
Cool. Yeah. All right, could go on off-road-ish.
Yeah. I mean, it'll take you down trail to a cabin, things like that, or to a lake.
The things you need, the things you need to do.
The things that most people are actually going to do with these vehicles, as opposed to, what the hardcore off-roaders are going to do.
Yeah, the hardcore people, they know what they're going to buy. They're buying old Wranglers and ripping everything out. And
Wranglers or Broncos or 4Runners, that's, or old Nissan Xterras, that's what they're going to use. They're not even going to consider a RAV4.
No one's knowing there. I'm going to take a RAV4 on the trail. No, don't do that.
All right, let's. Anyways, as I said, pricing's not available yet. This thing's going on sale late this year. We'll probably hear pricing sometime later in November, maybe early December before it goes on sale. And then Toyota this week also showed off the new Land Cruiser FJ in Japan.
Man, okay. So remember when they had that big event where they showed off all these EVs in the background?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, we're going EVs. Like, this was like one of those in the background. And I lost my mind. Because I was like, I want a baby FJ EV. What am I going to do? Don't need it. I'm not doing any off-roading. This is the problem with I think to be honest, a lot of people who buy off-road vehicles is like, you don't need that car. You don't need that. What am I doing? What am I doing with this? I live in the East Bay. There's no. Where am I driving over? That said, I want the baby FJ.
And I mean, what do you think of the design of this thing?
I really like it. I like the little baby FJ.
It's very blocky.
Yeah,
it's another Lego car.
Yeah, it's a Lego car. It is. It's reminiscent of essentially every, off-roader, which are just, a square and a rectangle.
Yeah.
And then 4 wheels.
The proportions are a little interesting. I mean, it looks like it's a little, I mean, the ones that they showed, the wheels, for an off-roader, the wheels almost look a little small. So it looks a little top-heavy to me.
I like the fact that they show one with a snorkel.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is this is sort of it is a Suzuki Samurai. There you go.
I think it's bigger than a Samurai, though.
Yeah, but it's this generation Suzuki Samurai.
Yeah.
Hey, we can't get the Jimny. Well, we're not going to get this either, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah, we probably won't get this one either.
There's a lot of Jimnys in Japan, so I can see why they would make this.
Yeah.
Or whenever I go to Japan, I'm just looking for Jimnys. One or the other.
But I mean, again, if you're actually going to do some real off-roading, this is a much better solution than the Rav4. I think it's still a unibody, but you're going to have some underbody protection on this thing. And in a lot of ways, it's better than the bigger vehicles like a 4Runner or the bigger Land Cruisers, because you can go into spaces where those vehicles are going to struggle. Having a smaller vehicle like this actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's why the two-door Wrangler makes so much sense. The two-door Defender makes, there was a Defender 90 outside the GM event. Did you see it?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I told somebody that someone got the right, they purchased the correct Defender.
But this one is a 4-door, though.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, but it's so small.
Yeah.
It's like 4 doors in a way that like the what do you call it? The Honda Fit was a 4-door. I'm like, yeah, it's 4-door, but it's it's pretty small. But you can put so much stuff in that car. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan. We're not going to get it, so I don't know why I care.
Yeah, it's about 10-inch shorter wheelbase than the 250 series Land Cruiser, which is the one that we get here. That's what's sold here is the Land Cruiser, and the Lexus GX is the 250 series. So it's considerably smaller.
Yeah.
And it has a 2.7 liter gas 4-cylinder. So no electric version of this one.
Yeah, it's Japan. There's a lot of issues around electricity in Japan. Earthquake, the nuclear thing. They're a little shy on electricity, to be honest, when it comes on.
Well,
but when you drive around, there's like electric charging. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, I could just drive my car here and charge it at the gas station.
Yeah. All right. So if they do offer this, you going to get one?
I mean, maybe. Well, if it was electric, yeah. By the time this comes out, then like the R2 will be out, and the Slate will be out, and the blah blah. There's so many sort of small vehicles that, it's hard to live in Northern California for me and think about buying a gas only car.
Yeah.
When like the other day we were like, it smells like smoke, and then we walk outside as you do, and you look around on the horizon, see which way the fire is, because you want to make sure it's not near your house. That's the reality that we live in.
Speaking of the R2 and the R3, Rivian had some news this week. They laid off 4% of their staff, about 600 people, and their chief marketing officer left, and CEO RJ Scaringe took over as head of marketing for Rivian. What do you think?
When you have that type of company, do one job and do it well. That's really what it comes down to. Find another marketer, a chief of, figure out something. There's a lot of external issues with any, EV startup. There's a lot of external issues that they have to deal with in the United States right now. But as the CEO, that's your job. Maybe don't split your time now. Maybe, double down on that CEO position and working to figure out like ways around the word no.
Yeah.
And then, hire someone who can do your marketing. Yeah, no. I mean, they're not cheap vehicles. That's the one thing. But they have money from Volkswagen. How that works out, essentially I'm sure to many Volkswagen developers, they have a bunch of kids that are coming in and telling them how to do their job. And they've been building cars for, we're Volkswagen. We've been building cars for 1 million years. And I'm sure there's probably pushback when it comes to that. There typically is, especially in large corporate entities. When you bring someone in to help you out, there's always going to be people who are like, boo, you don't know what you're doing. I'm like, well, So I think there's the CEO position for Rivian is 3 full-time jobs. Let's not become the head of marketing as well.
Yeah, when I saw RJ at an Automotive Press Association event here in Detroit a couple weeks ago, he did confirm that the R2 is scheduled to start production in the second quarter of next year. And that's going to be a crucial vehicle for them because the R1 is just, as much as a lot of people like it, it really hasn't sold very well. They sell about 10,000 of them a year.
Yeah, I mean it's not cheap. The EV9 exists, so you're going up against that's sort of the problem that a lot of the new companies have is that until you're established, like what? Okay, I'm going to put my if you have somebody with a lot of expendable cash, this is your second or third car. Okay, yeah, it makes sense. But for someone who's like, you know what, I really want a large EV, a large SUV that's an EV. But I don't, this is going to be the main car. What are you going to gamble on a startup? And you see startups disappear all the time. And Rivian's been around for a while, so it's it's kind of tough to call them a startup at this point. Do you gamble on a new company, or do you gamble on a company that isn't going anywhere? And that's I think that's a lot of, especially now with inflation's going back up, recession's always on the horizon, job cuts, the government shut down. It's a bad economic time, but you still, I need to get this car. What are you going to get? Are you going to get the car from the more established company that's been around for a billion years and also makes giant boats? Or are you going to get it from the folks who, it's great that they're, it's American built, American made, but am I going to gamble on that? It's going to be real interesting to see how the R2 does. That one's coming next spring, like I said. And it's supposed to cost around $45,000. It's the R1s are expensive enough that most of them, unless you leased them, did not qualify for the tax credits anyway. The R2 is likely to be, it's at a price point where the people that are inclined to spend that kind of money are going to be much more sensitive to the absence of the tax credits. And so I will be real interested to see how that one plays out. The R3 is that's the one that most people actually seem to want. It's a smaller one, and that one, is probably going to start in the upper 30s. Again, but that's not coming till 2027. Yeah, that's it. I have people like text me about the R3. I actually had someone text me this week about the R3, and I'm like, okay, well, the R2 is coming out first, and I don't know if coming out with the R3 first would make more sense because excitement doesn't mean sales.
Yeah,
I mean that's the So, but you also don't want to back yourself into a corner. You don't want to pull a VW ID Buzz situation where you got people excited, and then you made him wait for 7-something years.
Yeah.
And by the time he comes out, it was like, eh.
And then it was, too expensive and didn't have enough range.
Yeah. It's even with the range issue, if it wasn't as expensive, or if you gave like some good lease offers on it, like, Hyundai does great with these lease offers. If you gave some good lease offers, just get them on the road, and then people will see them, and then they'll want them. Right now, I don't see very many ID Buzzes on the road, which is unfortunate. Again, I really like the ID Buzz, even with all its like weird problems. No second row thing. What do you call it? Cup holders. Really about 245 miles of range. It's 400 volts, so it's not as efficient. I mean, they'll still charge it up to 200, but it's 400 volt 200 is peak, and it doesn't stay as consistent as an 800 volt system would. And so there's a lot of like little weird things that you're just like, oh, there's all this cool stuff that this thing does, and then there's a lot of like, oh. So hopefully the R3 doesn't end up falling into that trap.
So you and I were both in New York this week for a GM event.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
So we flew out to New York, and GM had an event where they had a bunch of executives stand up and tell us a bunch of things. There's going to be 2028. They're going to have their new software-defined architecture, which they really didn't say software-defined vehicle very often in the. I don't think they said it at all. They said it afterwards when you talk to people.
Yeah, I don't think in the main presentation they did.
They never said the word software-defined vehicle, which was kind of weird. They're going to have a level 3 SAE level 3 autonomous driving, which is eyes off, hands off in certain situations on the highway, etc. In 2028. A lot of things are coming in 2028. And then after the little presentation where it was very corporate, then we had the opportunity to talk to engineers, and that was way better.
Yeah.
Questions were asked during the Q&A, and none of the answers were very satisfying.
No,
because you weren't talking to the engineers. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I know it's great to say, oh, I got the CEO of this company to talk to me. I've talked to a lot of CEOs one-on-one, and some of them are great, and some of them are very media, savvy. They're media trained, so they're going to say the thing which is completely worthless and not helpful to me at all. And then you talk to the engineers who are building it, and then those folks, they know what's going on, and it was really great to talk to them after that presentation. Because if I'd flown out there for that presentation, I would have been sad.
Yeah. Well, I think you were standing there when we were talking to Sanaz afterwards. She's one of the PR people from GM, and she was asking, what we thought, and we both expressed our thoughts that, frankly, talking to CEOs most of the time, not all that useful or interesting, because, as I said, they're so media trained, and they tend to be, most of the time, they tend to be so on message that you don't really get any useful insights from them very often.
Yeah, and I think someone made the remark during that conversation that Mary Berra could say something that knocks that destroys the stock price.
Yeah,
just to get inadvertently say something. So as a CEO, you have to be very, very careful. As an engineer, you're not gonna affect the stock price. So the engineers have a little bit more leeway, and
unless you contradict the CEO.
Unless you contradict the CEO, and then there's always that sort. Then there's a lot of emails with PR people, and you're like, okay, what's real? You have to tell me what's actually real. Don't lie to me. So, yeah, no, it was great. I think the when they talked about level 3, I think they said all the correct things. That doesn't mean that everything's going to be perfect when it launches, but I think they're very smart about, our customers are not beta testers. There is no real way with level 3 that you can just tap someone on the shoulder and say, you have to take over right now, which is true, because you're telling people that they can watch a movie, they can read a book, and then expect them to, within seconds, take over the control of the vehicle. And within seconds, whatever the issue is, it's too late.
Right.
By the time the car tells you to take over and your brain decides you're taking over and you're dropping what you're doing, it's probably too late. It's not probably. It's too late.
Yeah.
So
things happen very fast on the road.
Yeah, you're moving pretty quickly. So it's pretty. It'll be interesting to see what the launch is in 2028. It's going to be on highways. They're very adamant that that's it. It's not going to be in the full domain that like Super Cruise has right now, because Super Cruise has some other roads. But so it's and then the new batteries that they're working on, and of course the software-defined vehicle architecture they're talking about was interesting, because it really does give them it gives automaker more control over what is getting put in their car and how it is controlled. And I've talked to Mercedes about this, and it's the same thing where it's like, every time something new gets added to a regular car, you're like, okay, well, now this person has talked to this person, has talked to this person, has talked to this person. Now this component has talked to this component that talks to this component that talks to this component. And it's a huge pain in the ass, to be honest. And so you don't get the updates, these very quick updates that a software-defined vehicle could do. So, yeah, no, I think it was overall, I think it was a good presentation. I think having the folks there that we could talk to was huge, and them being very sort of, telling us what's, all these events are always like, we're the best, this is the best, the thing we're doing is the best, blah, blah, blah. But when, you sort of cut through that, as, we've been to a lot of these things, and this one feels like GM's doing the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, the key now, as I've told a number of people in recent days, they said all the right things. Now they have to execute on it and make it reality, because most of the big stuff, is still 3 years away. The new electronic architecture, which is, they're moving to a central compute architecture. So it's not even zonal, like, for example, what Rivian does. With the zonal architecture, today, traditionally most vehicles have anywhere from 50 to 100 or more electronic control units scattered around the vehicle that are all connected together over a CAN network, and it's very difficult to do updates on that, and to manage all those different bits of software. A zonal architecture centralizes most of that into typically one to three ECUs in the vehicle, maybe one that manages the powertrain and chassis, another one that does body control stuff, and another one that does infotainment, and then has some usually 3 or 4 zone controllers at the corners that handle power distribution and also do some signal processing. So the raw signals coming off the sensors, there's some compute in there that processes those and then sends those filtered signals back to the central compute. This system is not going to do that. Instead of the zone controllers, are going to have what they call aggregators that don't have any compute in them. All they do is the power distribution to the sensors and the actuators, and routing the raw sensor signals back to the central compute. And you get one central compute box that's running on an NVIDIA Thor system on chip, which is a ridiculously powerful.
It's going to be liquid cooled. It's going to be like your home gaming rig.
Yeah, I mean,
it'll glow purple, and no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, this is the same. The Thor is built on the same Blackwell architecture as Intel or NVIDIA's latest, high end B100 and B200 GPUs that are running in all these AI data centers. So it's a very powerful chip, but it is power hungry, and requires a lot of cooling. But everything is going to run on that. And then there's also a communication module that is the gateway to the outside world. But that's all the infotainment, all the driver assist and automated driving stuff, all the powertrain control, everything is going to be running on that box. So that's going to be interesting to see how well they can execute that. I know
it's almost so when you do driving assistance systems, you have all these sensors, and they have this thing called sensor fusion, where it's just raw data, and it comes in, and then you have the system that sort of decodes the data and tells the car what's going on in real time. This is like sensor fusion for like the entire car.
Yeah, I know that GM is one of the companies that works with a company called Synopsys that does simulation and virtualization tools for chip design. And they've expanded that, so that, companies like NVIDIA and AMD and everybody else that designs chips, they use Synopsys tools to simulate the chip before they actually make any silicon. And so they have the ability to run all that, on the cloud or on a local machine, and run the entire chip. And what they're doing now is they've actually got tools that can emulate the entire control unit. So not just that core chip, but all the other parts, all the I/O and everything. And if you've got multiple ECUs in a vehicle, you can simulate all of those and have all those running in simulation and then run your whatever your software platform is on that simulated version of the electronics before you ever build any prototype hardware. And I believe the GM is actually using that. I know they're working with Synopsys, and I believe that they are actually running this platform already in simulation. So that's, hopefully that will help to get them to a better place when they launch this 3 years from now than they were when they started launching vehicles like the Hummer and the Lyriq and the Blazer EVs, where they had a lot of software issues. But, again, that's, they've got to execute on that, and that's not going to be easy. But, it was interesting, during the video demo that they showed us of the hands-off, eyes-off system, they showed a few different scenarios, so all they had was video renders. But one of the scenarios that they showed us was, cars driving down the highway and there's a police vehicle on the shoulder with another vehicle. And, their system is designed to actually recognize emergency vehicles like that, classify those separately from other vehicles. And so when it sees something like that, it will actually move over to the left one lane to give extra room, around emergency vehicles on the side of the road, which is what you're supposed to do when you're driving. You're supposed to move over and give them room. And so their vehicle is going to, their system is going to be designed to specifically do that. And they didn't mention Tesla, but clearly I think the reason why they showed that scenario is because, Tesla Autopilot and FSD have regularly had problems with running into emergency vehicles on the side of the road. So hopefully they can get that right.
Well, they also mentioned that they were using LiDAR, radar, and camera. Mm-hmm. So they're using the whole suite versus, and then they purposely called out like camera systems, like how they don't have the ability to see in every situation, and there isn't that redundancy that's there, and so that was very much a they didn't say who,
yeah, but everybody knew.
Everyone knows. It's yeah.
So let's see what else. The other thing that they talked about at this event, they had some folks from the GM Energy team. And GM Energy sells a vehicle to home enablement kit. Similar to what Ford has offered since the Lightning launched, where you can get a smart inverter and a transfer switch and a charger. A bidirectional charger that lets you power your home off of your EV battery if your power goes out. What the problem with these systems is they are quite costly, and they they can. It's not just the hardware. I mean, the hardware kit can cost $4,000 to $6,000, and if you want a home battery as well, that's several $1,000s more. But then you have the cost of installation, and it's basically an insurance policy. And the thing is, if you spend anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000 or $20,000 to get this installed in your house, then what happens if you have to move 2 or 3 years from now? You've spent all this money, you haven't really necessarily gotten the benefit out of it. Yeah. And so they're launching a leasing program for this that, similar to like the solar leasing systems and programs where, instead of paying up front for all this hardware, you sign a contract and you pay some number of dollars per month. They put solar on your house and you pay some number of dollars per month and you get the power from the solar. And the rest, the company that does it, gets the any excess power they get to sell back to utilities and things like that. And they're doing it's going to be a similar kind of thing with this, where you pay some amount per month, and they cover the hardware, the installation, and everything, and it's transferable. So if 2 or 3 years from now you have to move, the new owner can pick up that contract and continue to use that. And so that's helpful. So you're only paying for the time you actually have it in use, as opposed to forever. And there's other stuff that we'll talk about next week that Ford is doing that's pretty interesting, and I'm sure GM will probably be doing before long as well. But I'll talk about that one next week.
Yeah, it's I've looked the GM and energy system, and I keep pushing them every time I see them. Like, when will this work outside of GM vehicles? Because right now everyone has a walled garden, and there was a standard from UL like a couple months ago that I think lots of people are working towards. The problem is all these systems, like, the one with Wallbox and Kia works with a Kia, the one the Ford builds work with Ford, the one the GM builds worked with GM. And so once we get to a point where, okay, I bought the GM one, but I own a Hyundai, or I bought the Wallbox one, but I have a Ford. Or I bought a Ford, and then, because you might, especially if you're leasing these vehicles, if you lease the vehicle for, so many years, but you spend like another $20,000 on this like V to H, mega system, and you can't do the V to H part, that's sort of a bummer, that was like another $5,000 just to do that. And if you can't do that, then, well, so.
That's definitely a problem that needs to be resolved, is to have interoperability between different brands. And then after the event was done, I got a chance to sit down with Sterling Anderson, who's now, for the last several months, he's been Chief Product Officer at GM. Before that, he was had that same role, and he was a co-founder at Aurora Innovation, a company that's doing autonomous trucks down in Texas. And then he was chief engineer, the first chief engineer for autopilot at Tesla, before he left there in 2016. So we had an interesting conversation about, kind of what he sees as the challenges and his vision for GM and what his role is there. So I'm going to drop that in here, and we will be right back. A couple last things.
Yes. How about GM? How's things going?
It's good. Yeah, I'm 5 months in now.
Yeah.
It's been a really fun intellectual journey for us. It kind of expanded the horizons quite a bit. There's a lot of
it's quite a change. Going from Tesla to Aurora to GM.
Yeah,
very different.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity right now in the disruption that is kind of everything that's happening technologically in particular, right? But the layer on top of that, every day feels like a new, regulatory environment that you get to work in, or tariff regime or whatever. So it's been fun to kind of navigate and learn the business.
So, coming into GM as Chief Product Officer, what do you see as the strengths, and what are the things that you're going to try to evolve and progress for GM?
Yeah. Good question. I see a company that's really, really strong at turning the crank on a massive supply chain and manufacturing apparatus. Really good. Like, the responsiveness of our supply chain team to disruptions is extraordinary. I haven't seen that anywhere, including in the Valley. The kind of scale at which the manufacturing team has managed over years to hone kind of their production chops, really, really powerful. So I've been really impressed by all of that. Now, before I came to GM, I actually pinged Mark and Mary and said, "Hey, I'd like to spend some time at the product portfolio, just to kind of understand where you are." So I came out in March. This is before I came here, and we just lined up all the cars in the portfolio, which is not a small lineup for the moment.
Did you go out to Milford?
Yeah, exactly. And Mark and I just went for a drive in just a bunch of different cars. So I started in the tracks and just kind of worked our way through the portfolio. Really impressed at the just level of refinement the team has achieved in driving dynamics, ride handling, etc. Like, really, really good. I mean, $20,000 tracks that drives like this car is extraordinary. All the way up to the Celestiq, right? Mark and I went for driving that, and I mean, it's like driving on a cloud. It's pretty extraordinary. So the team is really strong at this, right? So it's so much of the core automotive stuff that I don't have expertise in, they're really good at, which to me feels like a really synergistic juxtaposition of strengths. there are areas of opportunity in software, in user experience, in evolving our electrical architecture to enable us to iterate on both much more quickly, that I've seen kind of enormous potential to change.
Yeah, certainly, software, I would agree, has been one of GM's biggest challenges from a product standpoint over the last several years. I know when they launched the Lyric, when I did the first drive of the Lyric, it was it had a lot. It was not quite fully baked. Yeah, and then the Blazer, and problems on others.
Yeah,
and I've talked to Dave and some of the other members of the software team over the last couple of years. I've been through the Sloan Lab a couple of times. Mm-hmm. How do you feel GM has progressed on that front? Do you think that GM has made the right moves, is making the right moves? Are they going in the right direction? Or are there still things that need to evolve?
I think we've made a lot of progress on it. I think that started with a refresh of the team. That Avis started and Richardson's continued. I think it continues with good practices across the company in how we test and develop our software, right? So the introduction of not just a much more exhaustive virtual test suite for regression and progression testing, but use of our install base, right? Vehicles sitting in garages at night that are owned by our employees that we can just be running hardware in the loop tests on, as a massive. Think of it as a massive hardware in the loop testing suite. So a lot of the best practices for how you do software, really the team has been upping its game on. So I think we're in a much better position. We're still getting better, right? That I wouldn't call us done yet. But I think what we're doing on the centralization compute is the next kind of major discontinuous step to improving how software does. It's so much easier to target a single central compute system that's common across platforms.
Yeah, I want to get back to that, but you mentioned running stuff on employees' vehicles. Yeah, doing hardware loop testing. I know GM and other automakers have always had captured test fleets that they use for pre-production models.
Yep.
Before they start delivering to customers.
Yeah.
But it sounds like this is something you're doing on an ongoing basis now. Pushing or were you pushing OTA updates to the cars and running tests on there and then reverting them back to what they had?
Yeah, we can run. So and when I say employee vehicles, I mean GM owned vehicles that our employees use. That includes captured test suite vehicles. That includes CBOs. You're familiar with that program? We got a pretty massive install base, so it has all these things, right? So it's a huge opportunity for us to use it to run these tests, and you got massive distributed infrastructure is effectively what it is.
Yeah. So the new BE architecture, which it's been talked a little bit about in the past. I've talked to Dave Richardson about it before, but this is the first time that's kind of been shown publicly. You've got a central compute. Kind of goes beyond what's being done with zonal architectures at some other companies. The both designing the electronics in-house and developing a whole new software platform. Is GM ready for that? It sounds like you think that you made a lot of progress. The organization is getting place, but that's the way that modern software is developed. Is fundamentally different from the way it was done when I was doing it in the 90s and early 2000s. And that there's always been that challenge over the last decade or so, especially of melding, the kind of safety first mindset, of, get something, whatever you have ready for job one, that has to be complete. And now it's more like a minimum viable product at job one, and then continuing to evolve that and getting the right mindset, the right processes in place. You feel like the team is getting there?
Yeah, we are. I'm staying very close to it. Right. So I'm Mark, Mary, Dave and I go out to Milford's monthly for specific detailed reviews about where we are on some of that work.
Okay. And I think you're as far as I know, you're the first person at GM to have that title of Chief Product Officer. Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody's had that before. I mean, he's been head of product development,
EV product development, this is on the EV pure product development title. So that is I'm technically EVP of product development and Chief Product Ops.
Okay. So, what does all that entail for you? You know, what is your remit within GM?
Yeah. It's our products.
Yeah.
It's their development. It's their success. Mm-hmm. So across ICE, EV, batteries, user experience, software and services approach. What else? I always forget stuff, and I always feel bad for the team that I forgot. Design engineering, manufacturing engineering, all of it. Okay. So, like, how do we turn this into a machine that hums, that turns out extraordinary products?
Uh-huh. You know, for most of the last decade, you're at Aurora, you were focused on automated driving, and what we saw today, the announcement today of the development of a hands-off, eyes-off system that's targeted for 2028 introduction.
Yeah.
What are there things from what you learned over the last nearly a decade with Aurora and working on autopilot at Tesla before that, that you're bringing to this team? What lessons have you learned that are being incorporated into what's being worked on now?
Yeah. I should have prepared that one because that's a really important question we get right. Look, I'll go off the top of the dome, and then I'm sure I'll think about things after we talk. So I'm like, sure, it's all about that one. Look, a couple things. First, the imperative of having extraordinary talent in place. It's like just that foundation to the rest of it. Second, the importance of creating a culture of kind of, we can do this, right? And one that instead of suggesting, hey, that can't be done, or how could we possibly, it simply asks the question, if we had to do that, what would we do? Like, what would we have to believe for it to be true in Bosca? So kind of cultural foundation of really being willing to do things that we haven't seen anyone else do before, right? I've had so many people this morning ask me questions like, well, but Sterling, are people asking for this? And like, what are customers asking for? And what I've told every one of them is, look, customers don't ask for things they don't know they could have, right? It's the whole faster horse thing. The same thing is true of engineering teams sometimes. Engineering teams can get stuck in a rhythm of doing the thing they've always done and looking out their kind of side view mirror at competitors and being like, well, how are we relative to competition? And that's good enough. One of the things that is important to me, and I talked with the entire product organization about when I started, was I don't want us looking out the side view mirror. Right? Like, if you're looking at what our competitors are doing, like, so we're not going to be the source of all good ideas. So we should absolutely ingest them when they come, and they'll come through different avenues. But I want your eyes on what's ahead, and like, I want competitors watching us through their windscreen. I want them looking at, that was a really interesting approach to an electrical architecture. That's a really compelling way to develop robotics. What they just did with the body architecture or their AV system or whatever, we hadn't thought of that, right? And so that's culturally, that's what I'm pushing us towards, is a world where invention is celebrated and risk-taking is rewarded.
I mean, traditionally at GM, that was the case for most of its history until the last couple of decades. I mean, GM, I don't know if it was in your part of the presentation this morning or maybe Mary's, but GM invented so many things, GM R&D, and a lot of that over the last 2 decades has been pared back.
As Mark,
It sounds like trying to get back to that, that really innovative spirit.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of really good people. Like, I've been really encouraged by the Like, I suppose I shouldn't have questioned it quite so much, but it's a natural human tendency to want to be inspired by something bigger, to want to like, and if you're an engineer, being unshackled by the, like, you're to engineer from this catalog and being told, hey, go figure out like the best way to do this thing and come up with a new inventive way of doing it. Like, that's really compelling and motivating for an engineer.
Yeah.
And so I think by imbuing that cultural expectation, there's a natural kind of self-selection process that happens among the team, right? And those who are content with sitting still and effectively plodding along and catalog engineering our products, they're going to find their way ultimately kind of eclipsed by those who are willing to push further and faster.
One last one. The integration of the Cruise team with GM, I've heard, in the past when Ford did that with a lot of the Argo engineers, there was a lot of friction there. I don't know how true it is. I've heard some reports from various places that, not everybody is meshing entirely. How's that integration going?
Good now. It was really messy for a while, right? Like, just to put no bone, like, I don't want to kind of put any bones around that. Like, it was tough for a while. But in the last few months, we've really started turning around, to the point that we brought on quite a few new people that are super excited about this. Many of whom are former departed Cruise people.
Okay.
Who left coming back, who leftover concerns are now coming back.
Okay. Well, that's good, Darren.
Yeah, no, that ship has been turned around in a pretty big way.
Okay. One last question I want to ask you during your presentation. You mentioned that first car. You never said what it was. What was that first car?
Oh, a Toyota Corolla, 1996 Toyota Corolla built in the Numi factory.
Oh, okay.
Which is now Tesla's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts you want to share?
I mean, you got my first car. But no, look, I think we are really excited about where we're going. We're excited about where we're going with the user experience, with the AI companion. We're really excited about where we're going with robotics, with LMR battery chemistries, with our product generally. Yeah, like, my goal here is to build exceptional products, right? And there are a number of ways that we can make them exceptional in ways that people today don't even know to ask for.
Yeah.
So that's the goal.
There's a lot of promising stuff we're hearing about, and I'm just now going to watch the execution.
Yeah, you got to figure out what's real.
Do it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's as you should, right? Like, but what's important to us and to me, I mean, I don't know if you have to go to CES, and I say, or the use of the word have to is delivered there. I've had to for the last decade. I get so tired of the future is now type proclamations and everybody talking about the future and never actually showing here's what we said last year and here's what we've done. It's important to me that we deliver on our promises. And this is part of why it mattered that we had LMR cells there. You must see, right? They should have the design prototype for the IQ that you've got. You can see the modules as they lay out for SDV2. So it's actively in development, and we're hoping to make it real in the next couple of years.
I'll be watching carefully.
Yeah,
always good to talk to you.
Thanks. Yeah, likewise. Always good to see you.
All right, and the other night I went to a dinner with Tiago Castro, who is the new VP of Infiniti. And some very interesting conversation there. But one of the things that he did tell us, he did confirm, is, for the Infiniti brand, they plan to launch 4 new vehicles over the next 4 years, starting in 2026 with the QX65, which was shown in concept form at Monterey this year. It's basically a fastback 2-row version of the QX60. And then in 2027, there is a hybrid SUV coming, a crossover. And then in 2028, there's going to be a new sedan. And he said, it's going to be like a mid-size sedan, along the lines of, the old G35, Q50, that type, that kind of form factor. And that is definitely coming, they say. So we'll see. I mean, what do you think about, Infiniti bringing back a sedan into the lineup.
Listen, if it's cool, I'm down with it. That's what it really comes down to. Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
It's like Volkswagen, Nissan's having issues with Volkswagen, Nissan, Stellantis. They're all like,
yep, it's challenging.
I think Nissan as an automaker is making some smart choices. We'll see if the Infiniti line can sort of expand on those.
Do you think the Nissan Sakura or Sakura solar extender is a smart choice?
I think the Nissan Sakura solar extender is dope, but I don't live in Japan, so.
We've talked about
free electricity.
Yeah, we've talked about the Sakura before. It's a K car. It's actually the best-selling EV in Japan, and it is a K car. So it's a little tiny compact hatchback, tall hatchback, very cute, a lot of fun to drive. And for the Japan Mobility Show, they're showing a new concept called the AO Solar Extender, that basically is a pod that goes on the roof. And when you park the car, there's on the top of the pod, this is a flat pod. On the top of the pod is a solar panel. And then when you park the car, there's another panel that extends out from the front over the front end of the car to basically double the size of the solar panel. And they claim that on a sunny day with the panel extended, it'll generate 500 watts.
500 watts? That's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, that'll add, a mile or so an hour, probably a mile or two an hour.
But it's like free. When it comes down to it. I mean, well, it's not free because you got to pay for the solar panel in the car, blah, 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 blah. But once you get it there, they say it'll go up, it's potential to add 3,000 kilometers, which is 1,800 miles. So if you got 1,800 miles of free gasoline every year, you'd be pretty stoked.
Yeah. No.
Well, not really free because you still have to pay for it.
Yeah, you're paying for it up front. But
yeah.
But you don't. It's maybe better to think of it as not necessarily. You're less reliant on finding a plug.
Yeah, you just park the car. You go to, I don't know.
As long as you don't park it in a garage.
Yeah, you go to Tokyo, Japan, or Tokyo Disney. Park it out in the lot. You're there for like 12 hours. You got like another. You get 8 miles when you get out.
Yeah.
Boom, drive home. Someone just put like a couple gallons of gas in your car for free, like a little wizard.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great to have a car like the Sakura here in North America. Especially if you lived in a city, this would be an awesome little car to drive around the city. Easy to park. It's fun to drive, and it is shockingly roomy inside.
It is really weirdly roomy inside because it's just a box. Boxes are just roomy. And you can do, it's really easy to pull U-turns because I kept getting off on the wrong exit while driving around Japan. I drove mine around Yokohama and I just kept getting off on the wrong exit because they had set up Google Maps, and Google Maps in Japan, not great. Yeah. When I drove their big van, and I think that used a different mapping, and I didn't have any issues. But of course I drove the big van second, so I'd already made all the mistakes I was going to make.
So you already knew your way around by that time.
When I got back with the Sakura, because it's from a place where you can like test drive cars. They're like, you go off the freeway a lot. I'm like, yeah, I kept. They knew they're tracking you because it's again it's if you're going to get cars out to the general public, they're going to track it so you don't just like drive off.
The nice thing about this is because the solar panel is flat, it's horizontal, it's on the roof. Even while you're driving, it's still generating some energy. So I mean, you can, with the extender closed, with the panel closed, you can still get up to 300 watts of energy, and then
just driving around
500 with the thing fully extended.
Yeah, so you're just driving around powering like your radio.
Yeah, or your climate control, heater, air conditioning. It's enough for that.
Yeah. It's
Good
Nissan Sakura. If you have a chance to go to Japan and get an international driver's license,
Yes.
International driving permit. You can get them at AAA because they're not going to let you drive a car if you don't have that. And then maybe you could go to Nissan's. I was in Yokohama. I think and I think the public can drive a car. I don't know how much they'll let like people from other countries drive it. I was, I'm a journalist, so they let me do whatever I want. But if you can do it, drive it around, and then just be really disappointed in America for choosing gigantic trucks over fun little cars.
All right, let's do a couple of listener emails. Let's start off with a follow-up on last week's Bill Challenge.
Bill Challenge.
So Bill wrote back to us that the Bill Challenge, huh? Cute. Glad you guys had some fun with it. Because we were asking, what kind of car Bill drives. Says he drives a late model Lexus hybrid, has a total range of about 500 miles, but a Honda Accord from 15 years ago is easily capable of getting between 300 and 400 miles. I had one and did the road trips the same way back then. My age? Let's just say I'm retired and have been on Medicare for several years. I am much older than Robbie. Do I dehydrate myself before starting out on a road trip? Well, I certainly do not drink a 32-ounce big gulp before starting a road trip.
See, this is where Bill and I are already like deviating in our lives.
Okay. And I start out with an empty bladder. So not necessarily dehydrating, but not filling things up before you leave. I usually take a coffee drink in an insulated container and just sip on it during the drive, slowly.
Oh, man, I'm not, again, deviating so far from
when you need to drive 10 to 12 or even 15 hours to go visit your family for the holidays, you don't want to waste any time with unnecessary stops. I don't anyway. That's the case. That was the case for us for many years. Nowadays, we only do road trips once or twice a year, and I don't even drive more than a few miles per hour over the speed limit. It's usually only 70 miles an hour. But we have been doing these long holiday trips since back when the speed limit was only 55 miles an hour. That was rough. Okay, have some more fun with this one now.
Yeah, there's huge deviations in Bill's lifestyle and mine.
Yeah.
Like I am as constantly like I would have before I will stop at like the 7-Eleven. I get a big gulp and I'm just
big gulp of Mountain Dew.
Yeah, and before I've even left, I've already had a Red Bull and maybe a tea, and so I'm already like at maximum capacity, and then I'm just drinking a big gulp. So that's there. So there's that. I do understand the long family trips. My dad, we're not stopping. Once again, if you got to go now, because once you get on the road, we're not going to stop. But those were only like 3-4 hour road trips. We didn't do. We did like one cross country road trip as a whole family from California to Pennsylvania. Where we really didn't stop, and and then me and my dad drove cross country when I was in high school again to Pennsylvania, and we stopped to use the restroom. We only stopped to sleep once. We would just rotate, so we would just drive for like 12 hours, 10 hours. It's like do 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 do. So, it didn't have air conditioning, so we didn't have to stop to pee because we sweated the whole time.
Oh, there you go.
So that's the trick.
So just turn off the air conditioning, turn up the heat. So you just sweat out the fluids.
Yeah, we just sweat out the fluids the entire time. It's just windows down.
So you'll be really gross when you get there,
summer.
But at least you don't have to stop for a pit stop.
Yeah, and I had broken my left arm, so we were driving a 70s 260Z with a manual transmission, so it was fine on the road. But at one point we were in a parking lot, and I realized I couldn't I was shuffle steering and then trying to shift gears and shuffle steering, trying to shift gears. My dad's like, "Why don't we before we stop in a big parking lot, we switch drivers." I got my first ticket on that road trip as well.
Oh yeah.
70 miles an hour driving to the middle of nowhere in Utah. It was like the only car we saw for an hour happened to be a cop car.
Oh, that sucks. All right. And then we also got a couple of follow-up emails from Bob with the BMW i3 that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Bob was having an issue with the seatbelt latch in his car. And we had recommended, he had gotten it replaced at the dealer, and they charged him some exorbitant amount of money. I don't remember exactly. It was, it might have been like upwards of $1,000. But we recommended that he filed a complaint with the NHTSA Office of Defects Investigation, and of course, right now, as we're recording this on October 26th, the federal government has been shut down for just over 3 weeks. And so not much is going on at NHTSA these days. Not that much goes on at NHTSA most of the time, it seems, but
I won't even the mean things the Department of Transportation said about NHTSA at a Tesla hearing once was. Whew.
Oh, you mean NTSB?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, NTSB. Yeah,
Yeah.
NTSB did not have any kind words for NHTSA.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody from NTSB at another event a few weeks ago, and yeah, he was pretty harsh on NHTSA as well. Anyway, so Bob sent some follow-up emails. First off, after we had recommended that push BMW for a refund on that, so he said he will be pushing BMW for a refund. We'll see what happens. And then the next one was the vehicle. He looked up some information and says from NHTSA, the vehicle manufacturer is responsible for repairing a seatbelt system that fails during normal operation, especially if the failure is due to a defect. Under federal law, the manufacturer must fix any safety-related defects at no cost to the owner, and NHTSA can require them to recall and remedy the problem. And then for manufacturer's responsibility, manufacturing defects. If the failure is caused by a design or manufacturing flaw, the car manufacturer is liable and must cover the repair costs. For recalls, if the failure is considered a safety defect, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration can require the manufacturer to notify owners and fix the issue for free. And then warranty. While not all manufacturers provide a lifetime warranty, they are required to correct safety defects, often under a specific vehicle warranty. So even though, something like the seatbelt latch may not necessarily be covered, under the warranty, most vehicles have, a bumper to bumper warranty of, about usually 3 to 4 years. Some are a little bit longer. Even though, that warranty may be expired, for something like a safety defect like this, and it certainly sounds like what Bob had was a safety defect, they probably have to replace it free of charge anyway. And then final, in response to an email I sent to Bob, it says, thanks, I'll catch the show tomorrow morning. I've had the utmost respect for BMW, but when given I already tried to resolve this matter with their customer service person once, I now have to contact them again. They should know that this is a NHTSA requirement and should not be putting me through flaming hoops. If they refuse, I guess I will reach out to NHTSA, but I can see that getting lost in the shuffle is a distinct possibility. I will keep you posted. And then the final follow-up was, I hope all's well. I want to have the facts from NHTSA regarding my issue before I pursue any further with BMW. Using AI, I am finding conflicting information as to whether or not the manufacturer is required to fix safety-related issues. Gee, there's a shock. The vehicle age may be a factor. I read that the car needs to be less than 10 years old, which mine is. With the government shutdown, I've not been able to reach anyone. If you have a direct contact you can send my way, this would be helpful. I will look, Bob, to see if I have any contacts and try and send them your way. Otherwise, I will update you as soon as I can. So, ongoing. Nothing resolved yet.
Fingers crossed, though.
Yeah. Good luck, Bob. And finally, from Wes in DFW, a couple quick questions. Hold on. Let me wrap this so I can read it. I forgot to do that. I hate it when I forget to do that. Let's see. When range is defined for an EV, is that assuming no regen is used? If it isn't, what is a good percentage average for additional mileage that one can get from using regen? If it is it just averaged into the numbers? So this one, every EV, is using some amount of regen by default. That's just the way it is. When they define the range, they run the vehicles on the same test cycle that's used for combustion vehicles. So there's a couple of standard city and highway test cycles that have been used since the 1970s, and then there's also several other different cycles that are meant to be a little more realistic of real-world driving. And so, what they do is they put it in whatever the default mode is for the vehicle when you start it. So it's, typically going to be some normal mode. And depending on the manufacturer, like BMW's often had, strong regen as their default on some of their vehicles. On others, that's been an optional mode. So whatever the default driving mode is, that's what they'll run, and whatever amount of energy recovery you get from the regen during the test cycles is what gets integrated. So it's going to vary, so if you've got a vehicle where the default is low regen, but there's an optional one pedal mode, you're, depending on your driving conditions, you're probably going to get some additional mileage. And it's hard to say for sure how much that's going to be. It's going to depend a lot on the vehicle and what your driving conditions are. Urban driving, you're going to tend to get more benefit from it, or where you've got more stop and go, as opposed to highway driving, where you're probably going to get little or no benefit from it. Any thoughts on that?
I think there's, they're definitely using the regen. I think the sort of, BMW's sort of auto smart regen, where it takes into account where you're driving, what road you're on, and the vehicle's ahead of you, and adjusts its regen. The first version of it, I drove it, I hated it. The second version, and since I've found it quite useful. It uses less regen, let's say, on the freeway, because maybe you want to roll for a while, so I don't, it's difficult to determine how much of your range is extended by regen, especially depending on, every car has a little bit different regen. Some cars are, a bit more aggressive than others, and driving styles. And the weird thing is, if you really stomp on the gas, and then you have more regen, but you're also using up more, it's not an equal comparison. So, you and what's funny is that you sort of get used to regen, and then when you get in a gas car, my brain, I get sort of irritated that when I'm driving my BRZ, every time I lift, I'm not making gasoline. I'm just wasting energy right now. And then what happens is you become accustomed to regen as additional source of braking. So then when you get in a gas car and you use the brakes don't feel that great. They don't feel nearly as good as those in an EV. So that's another weird sort of, like, one of those weird things you get from.
Yeah, and for us, that are jumping in and out of different cars all the time, making that adjustment between a combustion vehicle and an EV you've got to reset your brain every time you get into a different car.
Yeah, that is very true. Even gas cars, you go from gas car to gas car, but when you get from gas to EV, especially if you go from like a little EV to a giant gas truck, you're just like,
It's like, why isn't this stopping?
You're like, oh my God, I've got so much mass.
Yeah. It depends. So it's hard to give you a specific number. But if you do a lot of urban driving, I would expect, maybe 10% more range, if you have, like full one pedal mode available. 10, maybe, in extreme cases, maybe 15, and then, less on the highway.
Yeah.
All right. And then the other question that Wes had was, from what you've seen, how do the stats for vehicle thefts of EVs compare to those of gas vehicles? If less, is this because they're harder to steal or just not as in demand yet? So I looked up and I found a story from Axios from about a year ago, based on data from the National Insurance Crime Bureau, and also from IHS.
Sounds like it's a National Insurance Crime Bureau. Sounds like a made-up thing, but also they're like solving insurance crimes.
Yeah. And so, they also used data from IHS, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, based on insurance claims, analysis of insurance claims. So, overall, between 2021 and 2023, about 49 of every 100,000 insured cars are stolen each year. So it's actually not that much. It's the rate of car theft overall is pretty low. And among the selected vehicles that they have in the chart here, the GMC Sierra, so that was 49 out of 100,000 insured cars. The GMC Sierra, 227 out of 100,000 were stolen every year. And the Chevy Silverado, 96. And interestingly, the Hyundais and Kias that had the problem with being easy to steal, they don't even show up on this chart. So not sure what that says about those.
You want, if you're going to like do a crime, you want it's like you want to get the largest return on your investment for crime doing, and a giant pickup truck is definitely, because you can sell those in other markets, other countries. You can rip them apart, and
and that's the thing. I mean, most stolen vehicles are, some are stolen, for somebody to just take a joyride or, to ship them overseas, where there might be a market for them. But the vast majority of stolen vehicles, they go straight to a chop shop and get torn apart for parts, because you can make a lot of money selling individual parts, to body shops, to independent repair shops, even some dealers. That's where the money is, in selling the parts. So it's kind of the opposite of more than the sum of the parts. It's the sum of the parts is actually less than the parts themselves. And so things like a Sierra, Silverado, or Wrangler, a lot of demand for parts for those things because they sell in high volumes. The Tesla Model 3 during that time period, from 21 to 23, one theft per 100,000 vehicles.
So not a lot.
Yeah. And
people don't know what to do. Like, what am I going to do? You take it to a chop shop. You're like, what? I mean, the battery's worth a lot of money. But you don't have okay, hold on. We got to hire a bunch of new hired goons who
know how to work with high voltage batteries.
Yeah, who aren't going to get, electrocuted and killed.
Yeah, I think these vehicles are inherently probably a little more complicated to steal. It's not the same as just hot wiring them like you could with older vehicles, but also trying to find the market for these things. And actually, my guess is that over time, we will see those numbers for EVs go up, because one of the things you find is that the cost of repairing EVs tends to be high enough that when they're in a crash, they're more likely to be totaled by the insurance company than repaired. And when that happens, there are often lots of good parts on those things that when they'll go to a wrecking yard, they'll pull the battery out, they'll test the battery, if it's still good, it may get sold as a refurb for a service part, or recycled, and then other components will get sold. And I think as the volume of EVs goes up and there's demand to fix vehicles that might have otherwise gotten totaled, I think you'll start to see some increase in the number of EVs that get stolen, but it's going to be a little more complicated to steal those. So what you might see is EVs getting stolen not by somebody hopping in and hot wiring them, but actually hauling them up onto a flatbed and taking them away.
Yeah.
And
the crazy thing is, like, nearly every EV though has some sort of tracking device. Like, I know where my Hyundai is at all times.
Yeah, I mean they're all connected, which makes it easier to track where it is and recover it. So that,
and not even track where and recover. That's tracked to where your chop shop is. So now you're taking a huge, you're taking a huge gamble to sell like some battery packs to somebody, because your whole criminal enterprise can be, I stole 3 Teslas and now my whole criminal enterprise is gone.
Yeah. So at least for the foreseeable future, you're probably less at risk of having your EV stolen than a conventional car.
Right.
And that's it for this week. Thank you, everybody, and we'll be back next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.